Have you ever heard of the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover"? Well, that couldn't be any more true when it comes to Spec Ops The Line for the Xbox 360, PS3 and PC. On the surface, this game may look like any other generic run-of-the-mill shooter, but I'm here to tell you it's not. And even though the gameplay says otherwise, this is a shooter with a heart. Developed by Jaeger Development and published by 2K Games, Spec Ops The Line has been in the making for over 3 years. Was it worth the wait? Let's find out. The story in Spec Ops The Line is set in a sandstorm-destroyed version of the city of Dubai, and revolves around 3 Delta operatives, Captain Martin Walker, First Lieutenant Alfonso Adams and Sergeant John Lugo, as they search for survivors and try to find out what happened to the original rescue and evacuation team led by Lieutenant Colonel John Conrad. The story seems simple enough at first glance, but the more you play the game, the more you get out of it. I'll come straight out and say I absolutely hated the first 5 of the 15 chapters in the game, as it was the most boring and generic military shooter bullshit that you would come to expect from a game like this. But after those few chapters, that's when things really get interesting.
Oh my fucking god. Jesus, so many bodies.
The game's story takes you to places emotionally that you wouldn't expect to go in a third-person military shooter. I'm not kidding when I say this is the most emotionally charged game I've ever played. It actually makes you feel guilty and sad for the actions and choices you make, and sympathise with what Captain Walker goes through throughout the game. You'll see you and your squad mates change from, as Lugo would say, hardened killing machines to destroyed soldiers of war.
Gentlemen, welcome to Dubai.
Yep, it's still dead.
Yet to be seen, Sergeant.
You got a lock on that transmission?
Yes, sir. About 800 yards away.
And we're 800 yards away from seeing who's more full of shit. You or Intel?
Wow. If I wasn't a hardened killing machine, I might have hurt.
War is hell, as they say, and Spec Ops The Line is intent on showing you that. Some of the things that happen in this game are so visually shocking and just plain horrible that sometimes you just don't want to look. When things happen to your men or to civilians, you actually feel it and feel responsible for your actions. It's a shooter that makes you feel bad for playing it. It's weird in a way, but it's also thought-provoking and unforgettable. In short, the story is amazing, and it's one of the best single-player experiences I've ever played. Also, the twist ending will blow your mind.
No! What the hell?
Hold your fire!
Lower your weapon.
I look stupid to you?
No. That's why you're gonna point that pistol somewhere else.
The voice talent is also spectacular, with the always on-point Nolan North as Captain Walker and Bruce Boxleitner as Colonel Conrad.
Fuck. That's putting it lightly.
Body looks fresh.
It is. Even worse, he's 33rd.
But the standout performance of the game is Jake Busey as the darkly funny Radio Man, a character that sometimes has you at points either laughing at him or hating him. The soundtrack in the game is phenomenal, with the music always setting the tone correctly and making you feel uneasy at all times. The music in Spec Ops The Line always evokes the feeling of danger being all around you and feeling completely alone. The game is also filled with a ton of licensed tracks which add a lot to the game and are not just thrown in for shits and giggles. Over the course of the game, the Radio Man that I mentioned earlier will play different tracks while you are in the midst of firefights and set-piece moments. The tracks that are played always fit the situation and relate to the action. The soundtrack includes great songs such as Nowhere to Run by Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, Bad Vibrations by the Black Angels, and much more. The graphics are amazing. The destroyed ruins of Dubai are astonishing to look at, and at times you will just want to stop and look at the scenery. I honestly don't know why this sea hasn't been utilised in a video game before now. It's truly a wonder to look at. The sand and particle effects are superb too. You really feel like you're in the desert. At points in the game there are even sandstorms, which aren't too fun to play in but do look pretty awesome and evoke a sense of worry as you cannot see anything while in one. The setting is truly unique in this game and I love it. The animations look fine, but in my opinion it takes a little bit too long for the reload animation to play out, but other than that, everything is good. The only downside to the graphics is the character models. Everything just looks old when it comes to the faces and facial animations. I feel like they could have done a lot better with them, but that's just a small nitpick to be honest. Now we get to what is the most disappointing part of the game. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just painfully average. That of course is the gameplay. Unlike the original story, the gameplay found in Spec Ops The Line is boring, generic, repetitive and completely forgettable. You can do everything that you'd expect you can do in a third-person shooter, like taking cover, blind firing, sprinting and barking out simple orders for your teammates to follow. My problem is that it's also average. The cover system is clunky and can get you killed numerous times, the running is hard to control and it's hard to steer your character, which actually gets worse in multiplayer, and there are a bevy of those turret sections that you know we all loathe. When the game was being advertised, the developers said that they put a lot of work into making the environment of Dubai as interactive as possible. For instance, shooting a glass window with a ton of sand behind it will crush your enemies, which sounds really cool when you think about it, but it's not really well presented in the game. The parts where these moments pop up are usually so you can make a doorway to the next area, or the few times where you can actually utilize it in combat. But even then it's really rare, which is a shame. What I'm trying to say here is that the gameplay is serviceable, but it really isn't the star of the show here. The story is.
33rd's rounded up civilians. Why?
Shit, they're gonna kill them all.
Can't let that happen, Walt. We're not going to.
Let's hurry up and get down.
Spec Ops The Line also has a multiplayer offering, but like I said before, the gameplay is generic and clunky, and basically all the multiplayer does is give you this gameplay and make you play against others with it. I'm going to say this now, the modes the game offers is simply not enough to keep players online, as you can find much more improved and in-depth offerings in other games, which should be cheaper than this game at this point in time. Also, the customization options of your character in multiplayer is in short completely pitiful and nonsensical, because you won't care about trying to get this stuff. It all looks kind of boring and none of the unlocks will make you stand out from the crowd anyways. I really don't see there being a large and persistent online community, at least for consoles, on this game.
Keep it up and you'll have lost the battle and the war.
Spec Ops The Line was a difficult game to rate for me, as the game has a story that everyone should play, but it really doesn't have any staying value. It's quite short and you can beat the game in 5 to 7 hours. But after a lot of thought and consideration, I've decided to give Spec Ops The Line a 7.5 out of 10. The game is completely worth a rental, but I definitely would not recommend picking this up, which is a shame because I know a lot of people will miss out on this game. I just cannot recommend due to the generic third-person action and the underwhelming multiplayer. But if you're into a good story and getting sucked into a universe, then I totally recommend you check this out for the single player experience alone. It will change your views on how you play video games and question your moral compass. Truthfully, I will never forget my time with Spec Ops The Line. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. If you liked the video, please leave a like as it really helps me out, and leave a comment voicing your opinion on the video in the comment section down below. I also have a Twitter account and post a lot of gaming updates there, so be sure to follow me if you're into games as much as I am. See you guys.